and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Shawn Ashmore. Shawn, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm a big fan and also an admirer of yours that you spell Shawn the proper way.
I try.
Right.
Although at Starbucks, I battle with people all the time. Apparently, S-E-A-N is the proper way.
I'm not into the scene thing.
Hey, listen. What about S-H-A-U-N? Is that proper, or is that?
I think that you can get away with that as well, but you have more of the Shawn Michaels WWE kind of spelling.
That's right. I do.
So that's an A+ in my book.
Okay,
there.
Good. That's good.
Anyone ever tell you look like Aaron?
I rarely get that, but it's funny you say that. Yeah, every once in a while, there's a constant battle to correct people.
Right.
It's what happens when you're twin. You know, it just happens. It happened since we were, as young as I can remember. We've constantly been correcting people. So
for those who don't know, Shawn has an identical twin named Aaron, and they've both done a lot of TV shows and movies and projects together.
A few, yeah.
There was actually a thing on BuzzFeed not too long ago where they were trying to determine how you could tell who was who.
Yeah.
And they list all your credits, and then they came right back to it, and then they realized they never properly identified how to figure it out, so they just left it to you, the viewer, to figure out who's who.
You know, it just, again, it's that constant struggle where you're like, sometimes it's frustrating because, again, it's like, we don't think we look that similar. I mean, we're obviously twins and there's a similarity, but I'm always amazed that people will watch a show for years and then watch another show that one of us is in for years and not notice the difference.
Right.
Because I think there is a difference, but, you know.
I can definitely tell between the X-Men projects and when he was Jimmy Olsen in Smallville, I definitely can tell that there's a little bit of a difference in the face there, around the eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you, besides your twin brother and people trying to figure out, even though, have you been mistaken for anybody else?
When I was young, people used to say that I looked like Doogie Howser. So Neil Patrick Harris, when he was on Doogie Howser, we got that. And I was like, I guess we're both like really pale white people. So maybe that's what it is. Yeah, we used to get that a little bit when we were kids, though.
Because recently when I knew I was going to interview you, I was talking with somebody and they said they always used to get you and Dominic Monaghan.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you say that.
I didn't see it at first, but then I'm like, okay, I guess I kind of get a little bit.
Yeah, again, I think we're similar. We've worked together, Dominic and I, and we get that we look like. I think people think that we're like brothers, not that we're like the same person, but people are like, "Oh my God, you guys look like brothers." They're in the
same family.
Yes, yeah.
And the last thing about who you look like, and then we'll get right into the following here. Your Twitter photo. Very badass when you have sort of growing the beard into the mutton chop kind of combo thing there. You're looking a little Star-Lord, Chris Pratt there.
That's a good thing. I loved Guardians of the Galaxy.
The black collar up. And
yeah, that was a still from X-Men Days of Future Past. And my wife's here in the studio, and I think that she's very excited that you said that because if it were up to her, I'd have a beard all the time. She loves it, so...
See, that's awesome because most women don't like the beard.
Oh my God! If I could have like a lumberjack beard, she would dig it.
You're here for the following. It's season 3, which is awesome.
It is.
It's on Fox Monday nights at 9 p.m. right after Gotham. There. This is a different type of season from everything that I'm made to understand here. Where last season you caught the serial killer that you were looking for, Joe Carroll, and Kevin Bacon's character Ryan. That was like his white whale, if you will.
Yeah.
You caught him, and now he's all happy, but you're going to transition to something similar this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole idea really is that, you know, Joe Carroll was our nemesis, specifically Ryan Hardy's nemesis the first 2 seasons. And now he's caught. He's on death row. He's not gone. He's still a part of the show. And a lot of people are like, well, what's going on with Joe? You know, I think what the great thing is that he had such an influence on all of our characters that he's never really gone. You know what I mean?
He's on death row this season.
Yeah,
so he still has a presence.
Yes, so he's not like the focus of the investigation anymore, but he certainly has a presence in the show and influences all of us still.
As well as for people who don't know, what you're after, especially with Joe, is that he's got these psychic abilities that he can connect to other.
That's not it at all. No. He does not have psychic abilities. He is
trying to get you into X-Men.
Yeah, he is a very charismatic cult leader. Essentially, he's a serial killer who basically, like many great serial killers and cult leaders, is basically an egomaniac, but also very charming and able to manipulate people to do what he wants. And so, hence the name of the show, The Following. Joe Carroll creates, a following of people that are willing to do his
status,
willing to do his bidding. It doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be murderers, but they will help him, aid him in any way that he really desires. So starting with season 3, now that Joe's locked up, that's sort of like that was one chapter of The Following, and now we're sort of moving on to the second chapter where Joe Carroll's not the focus, and there's a new threat that emerges. And being that we are, the FBI, these are the kinds of cases that we take on, and there is a connection to these cases. It's not a totally random new thing that's happening, but it's not as if Joe Carroll is pulling the strings. So what I like about this season is that there's a reboot in that sense, that it's a new threat that's coming at us, but it's still tied into the history of all these characters and the events that have happened. And also there's sort of a mysterious aspect to it, because in the first 2 seasons, we knew who we were hunting. We knew that we were going after Joe Carroll. He's on the loose. He's committing these crimes. He's an egomaniac, which allowed us to identify who was committing these murders. Season 3, the threat is less overt. The person that is committing these crimes doesn't have that same desire. It's almost more dangerous because they fly under the radar. And I don't want to give too much away, but that's what I really love about this sort of new chapter of The Following, is that there's a new threat, and it's a mystery to us. So we have to sort of start the investigation all over again and find who this is and why they're doing it. It's much more difficult because this person is not like Joe, that's like just throwing it out there and making statements.
It's a great spot to be in, where the series has never been more popular, and you're taking the stance already to reinvent the entire story.
I think it's important. I think from a serialized show where it's not a procedural, you need to keep the story and the characters evolving constantly. Otherwise, it gets stagnant and people get bored. And so I think that's a real challenge for a television show. It's a lot of, by the time this season is done, we'll have done 45 episodes. That's a lot of television. It's a lot of character. It's a lot of story that you need to keep churning out that changes and evolves. And so I think that's what's kind of fun, and I think it's absolutely necessary. And I think season 3, we took some really great steps to sort of reinvigorate, the show and the investigation and the characters and what they're after, what they're trying to achieve.
Now, with not really giving anything too much away here, if you haven't seen season 2, give you a second to maybe turn to something else.
Right.
There we go. So season 2, when we were leaving off here, Joe Carroll's, caught, and obviously Kevin Bacon's character Ryan is very happy because it's a huge relief, and they'll go through the motions with that. But now a new thing has sprung up for Agent Weston, involving his father from last season. Yeah.
So, spoiler alert. My character's father was killed in front of me last season by the Gray family, who were in cahoots with Joe Carroll for a while. And there's one surviving brother that I'm hunting down in season 3. So a lot of the drive for Mike this season is the revenge, trying to get some closure, hunting this guy down, killing him essentially. There's no way around it. Mike wants to kill this person for killing his father.
This is more of not the main focus, but a very close side story with the main direction that season 3 is going.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's all sorts of tendrils and subplots that are happening. So there's sort of an overarching bigger case that we're working on, but this is sort of emotionally a big drive for me is this revenge.
Now, this is an interesting development, because you usually don't see the side of where one partner was going through something horrible with Joe Carroll. He's caught, sort of relieved now. He's can process it and kind of move on. Mm-hmm. And now you were the guy who was okay until that certain point. Now you're switching sort of roles here.
Yeah, it's and again, I think that goes back to the idea of constantly keeping the show evolving and having the characters moving in different directions at all times. And that was a great thing. What I love about playing this character, Mike, is that, where I started with in the first season and the first episode, which was like a really green, ambitious young agent who hadn't really been a part of something like this, that really wanted to be a part of this case and really ingratiated himself with Ryan to be able to be a part of this case, and then without really thinking of the consequences was tortured, had family members killed, was forced to kill many people himself, has come out the other end and is kind of in a really bad spot. And like you said, Mike has sort of taken Ryan's journey now, and now that and that's kind of what's interesting in season 3, is that we're trying to deal with, and Ryan is trying to deal with, where Mike is going, and whether, nobody understands what Mike's going through more than Ryan, but he's also trying to help his friend through this, and what we're sort of journeying through is whether it's inevitable that Mike has to go through this journey emotionally. Does he have to seek revenge? Like, when something this awful happens, is there any way just to ignore it and say, I'm going to be the bigger person and not follow through with your desires, which is to get revenge, and that's kind of what we're exploring.
I think that would lead to a really boring story.
It
if
might.
You didn't follow that through.
I agree. But I think what makes it interesting is sort of the struggle to do that, because Mike is aware of what he's doing. He's watched Ryan go through this, so he's not oblivious to it. It's not like he's on a rampage and he's a madman and he's doing whatever he wants. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying not to do this, but inevitably, whenever he gets to that point, he sort of gets pushed over the edge by how raw and emotional he is.
The show is the following. Just premiered on March 2nd. It's on Monday nights, 9 p.m. on Fox, right after Gotham. This show has become very popular. You can catch up on season 2 through On Demand, also on Hulu. I don't know if Netflix has it.
Yeah, first 2 seasons are on Netflix.
Okay, they're both there on Netflix as well. Perfect for binge watching. With this show getting very popular, especially the time slot you're in now with pairing up with Gotham, that's a really strong lineup. Are you starting to notice more people recognizing you from this show than from the X-Men?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's interesting about being recognized from different projects is that whenever an X-Men film's coming out, that's what people know you from, because they make such a huge deal.
Life,
yeah, it's like this huge thing. But the consistency of being on a TV show and being in people's living rooms for like 15 hours a year is kind of a big deal. And I'd never been sort of a recurring character on a TV show, so I wasn't sure how it was going to change. But definitely get noticed from being on The Following for sure.
Well, you were a reoccurring character on a show that I was quite familiar with in the late 90s called Animophs.
Yes, that's very true.
Do you still get that a lot?
I do, surprisingly.
Have you embraced that, or is that something I did that? And...
Honestly, there's a kind of a strange situation with Animophs, because I think I was 17. I was still in high school when I did the first season,
right?
And we shot that in Toronto. I'm Canadian, and we didn't get Nickelodeon in Canada. So I was working on a show that I didn't watch, and nobody I knew and nobody around me was watching. So I didn't realize that it was actually like a very popular show with certain age group, in the United States. So the show came and went, and I was living in Canada.
Short run in the United States.
It was on for two seasons basically. So it came and went. And I was living in Toronto, so I didn't know anybody. None of my friends, nobody I knew watched the show because they didn't have access to it. Now, cut to, 15 years later or something like that, and it comes out on Netflix.
Seeing it full circle, right?
Yeah, now it's on Netflix, and the day it came out, my Twitter feed exploded with people talking about Animorphs, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, people actually really love this, have a little soft spot for Animorphs, and I loved working on it. And in hindsight, it was kind of, what I really, really enjoyed about it, and I know why people liked it, because there wasn't a sci-fi show that really catered to that age group.
Right.
It's like there's Star Trek, and there's all these amazing fantasy shows and sci-fi shows, but there wasn't anything that I think targeted that age group, young preteens, basically, and into teenagers at that time. So I think that there's a huge void, and that sort of filled that. So yeah, I think it's really exciting that people watch that show. I love being on it. And going back and watching it, I'm like, man, effects have come a long way.
I find it interesting when you said that when it came out on Netflix there and your Twitter blew up, because it's one of two things. It's one of people discovering it for the first time and going, oh my God, that's, the guy from X-Files. Guys from X-Men and The Following. But it's also people who watched it initially and then remembered, oh my God, he was in that, and then they become a big fan all over
again.
Well,
what's amazing is I would say 90% of it is I saw you in Animorphs, and I've been following you ever since.
That's even better.
Yeah, no, but that really makes me realize how powerful this is, and how you do something, and then the people that enjoy your work really stay with you, and I was really thankful, and it was kind of really nice to be like, wow, you saw me in that 15 years ago, and you've kind of always had your eye open and always supported the stuff I've done, and that's amazing. That's a really kind of nice feeling.
Especially in those Nickelodeon shows, because you don't know when and where someone's going to remember that, or what somebody was going through at their time of the life that's sunk in with them.
Yeah.
I talked to an actress named Emily Hampshire.
Oh, yeah, I know Emily.
Okay,
yeah.
And I was talking to her for 12 Monkeys,
right.
And she's in this new show, Schitt's Creek.
Yep.
But I just couldn't wait to talk to her about Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
And she goes, I can't believe people still latch on to that.
That's
and I was
amazing.
Like, it's those weird things when you grow up.
Well, when you're kids, it's so influential, and like you said, it's not necessarily even the show itself. It's formative to what you're doing, and those years are so just so important. So sometimes it's not even oh, what a great show, or had such an impact. It's just that you were going through something, and it made it it imprinted on you. And
right.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So you've got a whole tier of different generations for a fan base here between the Animorphs and then, of course, the X-Men and the following as well.
Yeah.
So you're all over the place with people coming up and recognizing you from whole different things.
Yeah, I don't have like a type where I'm like, oh yeah, it's always this kind of person that recognizes me. It really is. It's like if it's Animorphs people, they're usually in their mid-20s. Like that tends to be because or maybe like maybe late 20s. And then X-Men people are all over the board, like from kids to like grandparents. You know what I mean? It's just such a broad audience for something like that.
And it's always going to be because it's the only Marvel property not under the Marvel Disney umbrella that's actually doing very well.
Yeah, and it's really and I think the X-Men, I think the reason that X-Men are so popular are just it's the core value in the story, and people of all ages relate to what that is, being an outsider
there's
dealing
always
with that.
There's always a superpower or a hero story that you can relate to.
And again, X-Men is really about being different and having that be an advantage as opposed to a minus. It's like about embracing what makes you different, makes you powerful and different and strong, and I think that's kind of the overarching idea of the X-Men, and everybody relates to that. Everybody wants to relate to that.
I also read something a few months ago that you were for X-Men Days of Futures Past. They cut out a bunch of stuff that you was hoping to be in the movie, but they did give you kind of a nice presence at the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, what happened was there was a whole sequence that Rogue was in, played by Anna Paquin, who I've been working with since the very first X-Men movie, and my character had he was like...
Which bravo, by the way, because a lot of them come and go or get killed off in some way. Even your guy got killed off at one point, but all of a sudden history changed and
time travel allows for all possibilities, which I love. But yeah, Anna, we shot a whole sequence with Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, myself, and Anna. And it was the first couple weeks of shooting on the film, and the sequence got cut because the film was really, really long, and it sort of broke up the storytellings. And I understand when I heard that section was being cut, I totally understood why, but I was disappointed because I loved working with Anna. I loved the storyline and what we got to do.
Nobody wants to see their stuff cut.
No, it's just kind of a bummer. So we had to go back and do reshoots just to sort of patch where some of the characters were and different things, and it actually, I mean, honestly, I loved the way that it all came together. But from what I've heard, they're actually releasing another version of the film called the Rogue Cut, where that whole sequence is in the film. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's coming out.
That's great.
Sure, I think I heard this summer. Like, don't quote me on that. I mean, you are quoting me on that, but I can't be 100%.
Don't quote me on the quote.
Yeah, but that's what I've heard, so I'm not 100% sure about that. And so it's kind of nice that those scenes, and it's not just they're releasing extra scenes, they're actually cutting it into the film. So you'll get to see sort of the original version, the script anyways, that we shot. And, maybe it'll be better, maybe it won't. I just think it'll be nice for X-Men fans to sort of see, another portion of that film.
Well, I'm happy to hear about that. I mean, I'd love to see it when it comes out, whether it really enhances the story or just gives you another level of depth to it.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Yeah, it's just a nice little side mission that happened, and I think it'll be cool to see.
With them going more in the first class direction, at least for now, do you see your character, you play Iceman for those who don't know, Bobby, do you see your character making any kind of return?
Honestly, I don't know, and I say that not to be coy or I honestly don't know, and I never do. I mean, I heard about Days of Future Past like 2 months before we started shooting it. I think there's always a possibility. I think the X-Men are a franchise and characters that people seem to want to continue to see. And like you just said, they're making X-Men Apocalypse, I think, very soon, that focuses on sort of the younger generation, the first class cast. But you never know. I mean, maybe we'll see an X-Men 4 at some point. I have no idea. I'd love to play the character again. It's so much fun to get suited up and work with these people that we've been working with for like 15 years now, and have grown up playing this character. So it would be nice to continue that journey. But honestly, I just don't know.
Well, you get to live on because you're in the video game.
Yeah, that's right.
And when they make future video games and you can choose your character, there's always going to be Iceman somewhere in there.
Let's hope.
And then maybe there's action figures where you got to voice a couple of things.
Yeah, we never know. We'll see what happens.
Do you think, and we'll go right back to the following here, do you think with the way everything's been going, Sony's deal with Marvel and all of that, do you think they'll ever strike some kind of agreement where Fox and Disney Marvel can kind of bend some of the rules and get the X-Men back into the Avengers story or into that universe?
I mean, I think that would be very exciting especially for real comic book fans that sort of are loyal to the Marvel universe. But my one thing about that is that I wonder how many characters can be serviced in a movie. The
Right.
Avengers to me is already chock full of great characters that you want to spend time with. Like if you added a whole X-Men team, I don't think that you
I think
could
it's just going to
service-
be the main core going in the first round.
Yeah. And I just don't know if that would be as effective, or maybe the films are good because they just sort of focus on the characters, like the stories that they're trying to focus on. I like I've always liked the idea of crossovers and mashups because they do it in the comic book. It's
Right.
established that those characters can interact and they're a lot of fun when they do. But I kind of wonder if you're making a feature and you already have a great set of characters, will it just dilute the amount of time that you can spend with all the characters, or is it like, oh, it's just going to feel like a tag-in? Like I think I read recently that you said Sony is making this deal and maybe Spider-Man will pop up.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man has done great and deserves his own films, I think. So I wonder if it will be distracting, or if people are going to go watch it and be like, oh, well, Spider-Man didn't get enough time, or I want to see more, or what that would be. But those are bigger issues. That's a bigger pay grade. I'll let the studio executives deal with it. But I think it's always possible and might be kind of fun.
Well, hopefully somewhere down the line it includes the Iceman there.
That'd
But
be nice.
until that happens, you can see Shawn in the following on Fox Monday nights, 9 p.m.
Yes, sir.
After Gotham. Season 3 is already here. You can catch seasons 1 and 2 on Netflix and Hulu, and so you can get all caught up. It's definitely worth the time. It's one of those binge shows that you're looking for something new, and you're like, I got some time to kill. This is a great Saturday or Sunday. Just sit around and plow through the
easy to
seasons
get
and
through.
then catch up right now.
Yeah, it's easy to get through for sure.
Shawn R. Ashmore on Twitter. I see you're active on that.
Yes, I am.
And do you do the Facebook and Instagram stuff too?
I do Instagram, no Facebook. And I think my Instagram is Shawn R. Ashmore as well.
Okay, so both of them at the same
It's easy,
time there.
yeah.
And remember, that's Shawn, not his brother. Shawn's the better looking one of the two.
Hey, now.
The following, please check it out. Shawn, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and wish you all the best, man, and more Iceman coming soon.
Thanks for being here.